I was 11 the first time I heard that, standing in the hallway soaking wet from the rain because no one remembered I had soccer practice. Dave, my adoptive dad, didn't even look up from his recliner when he said it. Linda, my mom, was on the phone complaining about Mason's broken PlayStation, acting like I wasn't even there. That day stuck, like permanently burned into my hard drive. Fast forward to now, I'm 27, a software engineer living in a house I didn't even know would be mine until my world flipped. But we'll get there. Let's rewind a bit. I grew up in a cookie-cutter suburb in Texas. You know the type: church every Sunday, casseroles at funerals, and the family photo always had me off to the side like an unpaid intern. I was the adopted kid, and they made sure I knew it wasn't the fairy tale kind of adoption. It was more like the church said it was the right thing to do. Mason was their biological son. 2 years older than me, always the star. The miracle baby they'd talk about in front of me like I wasn't standing 3 feet away holding a dish towel. Mason got new Nikes every semester. I got his old pairs, still dirty soles worn sometimes with his name sharpied inside. One time I got grounded for being ungrateful after asking if I could just have shoes that didn't smell like someone else's sweat. That was the theme, honestly. I wasn't abused technically. There were meals, a roof, a room if you count the laundry closet I slept in from ages 6 to 12, but the emotional neglect, death by 1,000 paper cuts, and the worst part, I tried so damn hard. I got straight A's, joined band, brought home trophies, even helped Mason cheat on his calc finals once because I thought it would get me a sliver of praise. Nope. He got a steak dinner. I got told to mow the lawn because everyone has to contribute. By high school, I'd checked out emotionally. I was working 2 part-time jobs by 16, not just for extra cash, but because I didn't want to be home. I taught myself how to fix old laptops, sell refurbished ones online. I saved every dime. My goal? Get out. And I did. Barely. Linda and Dave didn't come to my college orientation, didn't help with dorm supplies, just gave me a limp handshake and a $25 gift card to Applebee's half-used. I'm not kidding. Someone had already bought spinach dip with it. But the one person who did show up, Uncle Ray, or at least that's what I was told to call him. He was Linda's uncle, lived on a ranch about 2 hours out in West Texas. Quiet guy, Vietnam vet, kept to himself. But he showed up that day with his truck-loaded mini-fridge comforter snacks. No lecture, no small talk, just grunted, "Let's get you moved in." Over the years, Ray became my lifeline. He'd send me $50 every now and then with a note for tools or beer. Your choice. And he listened. When I told him about the silent treatment back home or how Mason crashed my first car and blamed me, Ray didn't try to fix anything. He'd just sit with me in silence, hand me a root beer and nod like, "Yeah, that tracks." I never thought he cared all that much, but he always showed up when no one else did. Anyway, fast forward to last year. I'd been out of college for a few years, working in Austin, doing okay. Saving, living alone, going to therapy, trying to shake off the guilt spiral I'd been raised in. Then the call came. Ray had passed. Heart failure, quiet, alone, just like he lived. I drove out for the funeral, small thing. A few veterans, one neighbor, a retired mechanic he used to have coffee with. Dave and Linda showed up in black suits like they were starring in their own private Hallmark movie. Mason didn't even come. He had a sponsorship stream that weekend. Whatever the hell that means. Linda kept saying things like, "He always adored Mason and he told us he was leaving the place to us." I said nothing. Let them talk. Then came the lawyer's call. Ray had left a will. Wanted me present. So I showed up. Thought maybe he left me his old tools or the truck. Something symbolic. Nah. He left me everything. The land, the house, the accounts, the savings, even the dog Duke. My jaw literally dropped. I wasn't expecting that. But Dave? His whole face turned purple. Linda looked like someone just told her Jesus was taking back Christmas. She stuttered something like, "That can't be right. Alex isn't even family." The lawyer just raised an eyebrow and said, "According to this, he's the only one who ever felt like it." Mic drop. We left in silence. But I knew. Oh, I knew this wasn't over. That night I sat in Ray's kitchen, my kitchen now. Same squeaky fan, same mug on the windowsill. And I just cried. Not because of the inheritance, but because someone finally picked me, on purpose. That realization broke me, in a good way. But yeah, the silence didn't last. 3 days later, I got a text from Linda. "We need to talk about the house. It's what Ray would have wanted." Screw that. This is where the real story begins. So yeah, 3 days after the will reading, I'm sitting on the porch drinking coffee out of Ray's chipped mug, and my phone starts blowing up like it's 2012 and someone just got dumped over text. First, it's Linda. "Hi, sweetie. We need to sit down soon and figure out the estate. Ray wanted unity, not division." Then Dave. "Don't make this ugly, son. We raised you." And finally Mason, who hasn't said a damn word to me in months. "Yo, mom and dad are freaking out. We should talk. Maybe work something out. Oh, now you want to talk cute." I left them all on red. Look, I wasn't trying to be petty. I just needed time to breathe. Time to walk around this house that somehow impossibly was now mine. The porch swing Ray built by hand still creaked when the wind hit it just right. His boots were still lined up by the back door like he'd come home any minute. It didn't feel real yet, but their campaign was only getting started. Linda moved fast. She went full guilt trip sorceress mode. She started calling every family friend, every old neighbor, spinning her usual "we took Alex in," raised him as our own, and now he's kicking us out of the only place that ever felt like home. Felt like home, lady? You once made me sleep in the garage because Mason's hamster needed the spare room. Miss me with that revisionist crap. Then came the next stage, pressure by presence. I pull into the gravel driveway one evening after work, and there they are. Dave and Linda, sitting on the front steps like they hadn't told me for years I was just some church kid they were doing a favor for. They stood up like they expected a hug or something. Linda smiled. We were thinking maybe we could all have dinner, talk things through. I didn't even take the keys out of the ignition, just stared through the windshield. "Why now?" I asked. Not even mad, just done. "You had 20 years to treat me like family. Why do you care all of a sudden?" Dave jumped in with his classic stoic BS because family forgives. "You wouldn't even be who you are without us." I actually laughed, loud. "Exactly," I said. "I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't spent my entire childhood figuring out how to survive without you." They didn't get it. Of course they didn't. Narcissists never do. I told them to leave. Politely, calmly, no scene. They didn't. So I walked inside, locked the door, and turned off the porch light. They sat outside for another hour before finally giving up. I watched them from the upstairs window, sipping a beer and wondering how many times I used to wait on them like that. Difference is, I wasn't begging for attention, I was just trying to matter. Anyway, things escalated fast after that. About a week later, I get served. Yep, they're contesting the will. They hired some crusty lawyer from church who sent a certified letter claiming I manipulated Ray in his final days. Said I isolated him. Said he wasn't in a sound state of mind when he signed over the property. I read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Manipulated. I visited Ray every damn week. Took him to appointments. Fixed his fence. Changed his oil. You know what Mason did? Posted once on Instagram in front of Ray's barn with the caption, "Family farm vibes," then left 30 minutes later. I was pissed. And not because they were trying to take something from me. That was predictable. What got me was how dirty they were willing to play. So I did what I always do. When I'm backed into a corner, I went into quiet war mode. I started pulling receipts, bank statements, texts, voicemails, photocopies of Ray's handwriting from the past 2 years, all dated, all showing he was as sharp as ever. I dug through drawers in the old study, scanned every sticky note, every shopping list. And then jackpot. A sealed envelope buried in the bottom of Ray's filing cabinet behind a stack of old ranch tax returns. It was addressed to me. Just said, "For when they come knocking." Inside, a notarized letter, dated 6 months before he died. Written in Ray's half-scratch, half-print style, but crystal clear. "This house is Alex's, not because he's blood, but because he showed up. The rest of them didn't. They want my things. He earned my name." I sat there in that dusty chair just holding the letter for a long time. It wasn't about the land, or the house, or the money. It was about finally being seen and having proof. They couldn't take that away now. I gave everything to my lawyer, a woman named Beth, who looked like she hadn't lost a case or an argument in a decade. She read through the will, the letter, and the lawsuit. Then she looked at me and said, "They're going to try to drag this out. But legally, you're solid. Let them waste their money. We won't blink." And we didn't. Meanwhile, Mason went full social media victim. Posted some dramatic TikTok montage of old family photos that I wasn't in, by the way, with a voiceover that said, "Sometimes the ones you love most betray you for a paycheck." Really, bro? The same guy who once told me, "You're lucky we even let you stay after high school," now crying online about betrayal. I didn't respond. Didn't even watch the whole video. Just blocked him. Let them scream into the void. I wasn't playing anymore. 3 weeks before the court hearing, I went back to Ray's workshop. Thought maybe I'd fix up the old tractor like we always talked about. I opened the tool chest and taped under the lid was a flash drive. Plugged it into my laptop. It was a recording. Ray talking, explaining out loud. If anyone tries to say I didn't know what I was doing, they're lying. I chose Alex, not out of pity, out of respect, because when the roof leaked, he fixed it. When I fell, he caught me. Mason only came around for pictures. There it was, in his own voice. I sent it straight to Beth. And that was the end of it, really. We showed up to court with a folder thick enough to bruise someone. Their side looked smug until Beth pulled out the audio file. The judge listened. Twice. Then looked at Dave and Linda and said, "Seems pretty intentional to me. Case dismissed. No fireworks, no dramatic outbursts. Just a quiet little thud like a door closing for good." Outside the courtroom, Linda tried to talk to me, tried to cry. "Alex, please, we're family." I looked her dead in the eye. "No, Linda, you raised Mason, I raised myself." And I walked away. You'd think that would be the end, right? It wasn't. Not yet. Because karma doesn't like to be rushed. And it had something extra in store. It had been about 6 weeks since court. The silence was strange. For the first time in my life, nobody was criticizing me, demanding favors, or passive-aggressively sighing when I said no to something. I didn't realize how loud my life had been until it finally shut the hell up. I was fixing up the front porch one morning. Ray had always meant to replace those warped planks when I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it, but something told me to listen. It was Linda. Again. "Alex, things aren't going well. Mason's gone. He took off and left us with a mess. Please call us back." Gone. I didn't care. I didn't. But also, what the hell? Later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I did a little digging. Turns out, Mason had racked up thousands in credit card debt. Not just that he had convinced Dave and Linda to co-sign a personal loan for a business venture. That venture, a podcast/YouTube channel called Legacy Men. He had 0 sponsors, 0 income, and spent most of the money renting Airbnbs to stage success for social media. Think fake Rolex-rented Tesla clickbait titles like How to Build Empire Mindset When Everyone Betrays You. I swear to God, he made an episode titled "Blood Doesn't Mean Loyalty, Why My Own Brother Took What Was Mine." It got 113 views and 9 dislikes. And the kicker, the loan defaulted. They were on the hook for everything. Over $75K. Suddenly the inheritance wasn't just about ego anymore. It was about survival. They needed my help. So they came back. I was out back clearing some overgrown brush when I heard tires crunch up the gravel drive. I turned and there they were. Linda in a cardigan like she was going to Sunday service. Dave looking like someone took his pride and ran it over with a tractor. They didn't even park properly. Just kind of left the car halfway in the grass like they couldn't commit. I didn't say anything. Just kept working. Linda approached first. "Alex," she said, "please, can we talk?" I leaned on the rake, looked her up and down, waited. "We're in a bad spot," she said, voice cracking a little. "We're not asking for anything crazy, just some help, a loan, short term." I just stared. Dave stepped in. "You know we've always done our best. Things got out of hand. Mason, he tricked us." Wow. Not sorry we gaslit you for 20 years. Not we were wrong. Just oops, our golden child turned out to be a flaming dumpster fire and now we're broke. Linda tried the next angle. "You're still our son, Alex." And that's when I lost it. I laughed, loud and mean. "No, I'm not. I was a tax write-off, a charity project to make you look good in front of the church. Let's not rewrite history now just because Mason dipped with your retirement money." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Dave looked like he wanted to shrink into the ground. "We're going to lose the house," he said. "The one in the suburbs. We already missed 2 payments." I shrugged. "Maybe you can rent one of those Airbnbs Mason liked so much." They stood there in silence. For once they had nothing left to bargain with. Nothing to guilt me with. The control they used to have gone. And me, I felt nothing. Just calm. "We'll leave," Dave finally muttered. And they did. But that wasn't the end of it. Because Mason wasn't done being Mason. A few nights later, I got a DM request on Instagram. From a burner account. It was him. "Hope you enjoy playing rich with stolen money. Ray hated you. You know that, right?" I didn't respond. Just blocked it. But then came another. A Reddit post. He made a whole damn thread on RR True Off My Chest, painting himself as the betrayed golden son, claimed I isolated Ray in his final months, said I forged the will, said I brainwashed the old man. It didn't go viral, but it got enough attention that some of his little podcast fans jumped in my comments. I screenshot everything, sent it to Beth. We filed a cease and desist the next day. 3 days later, Mason took the post down, but not before I saw the comment he left under it. It's not over. Family blood doesn't just disappear. You're right, I thought, but you disappeared? I didn't. It was around then I found the last surprise. I was cleaning out the barn. Ray had a whole back section I hadn't even touched yet. In a rusted metal box behind some old feed bags, I found a folder marked Private Legal. Inside, loan records. Ray had loaned Dave and Linda money over the years. Thousands. For car repairs, medical bills, even Mason's first year at that private college he flunked out of. There were no repayments. But that wasn't the part that hit hardest. There was a note, handwritten. If they try to fight, Alex, show them this. They never raised him for love. They raised him for leverage, and now that's gone. I sat on the barn floor, dirt sticking to my jeans, just stunned. He knew. He knew the whole time. Ray wasn't a talker. He wasn't the type to sit you down and say, I love you or you matter. But he saw me. Every quiet act, every show up, every ignored birthday. He was watching, keeping record. And in the end, he gave me what no one else ever had. The last word. I scanned everything, uploaded backups, sent copies to Beth just in case. We weren't at war anymore. But I wasn't letting my guard down either. Then one morning, a letter showed up in my mailbox. No return address, just my name. Inside, one page. We lost the house. We're staying at a church friend's place. If you ever want to forgive us, we're here. Mom and Dad, forgive. They didn't get it. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth. And for once, the truth was finally on my side. I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer, and locked it. Didn't reply. Didn't need to. I had a ranch to fix, a life to build, and peace I didn't owe to anyone. It's weird, you know, how peace doesn't show up like fireworks. There's no choir singing, no gold light shining down from the sky. It just kind of settles. Like dust. One morning I realized I hadn't checked my phone in hours. No texts from Linda, no cryptic DMs from Mason, no legal letters, no guilt trap voicemails. Just quiet. And I wasn't tense waiting for something to go wrong. I was just living. I spent that week clearing the last of the brush along the back fence, repaired the old swing Ray built, painted the shutters navy like he always said he would. Duke the dog followed me around like my little foreman, supervising every nail I hammered. I swear he judged me every time I took a break. A month passed like that, and I started to feel something I hadn't in years. Steady. Not happy, not euphoric, just solid, rooted. Like I was finally standing on ground that wasn't shifting under me every 5 seconds. Then out of nowhere I got an email. Subject: speaking engagement inquiry, local community youth forum. I almost deleted it thinking it was spam, but nope, it was real. Some woman named Kendra from a local nonprofit had heard through the grapevine, aka probably Beth, that I was someone with a story, and she wanted me to speak at this teen leadership event. Said they were looking for people who came from non-traditional upbringings and built stable lives. At first I laughed, hard. Me, the guy who was once locked out of the house for coming home 10 minutes late from work at 17, who once slept in his car during finals week because Linda needed space to focus on Mason's career path. That guy. But then I sat with it, and I thought, why not? So I said yes. And when the night came, I stood in front of maybe 30 teenagers, half bored, half curious, and told the truth. I didn't sugarcoat it. I said, look, I was the kid who got the hand-me-down toothbrush, the one who got told to be grateful while getting ignored. I used to think if I just achieved enough, they'd finally see me. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Some kids laughed. A few nodded slowly like, oh damn, it's not just me. But here's the twist, I said. You don't have to become what they say you are. You don't have to spend your life trying to win people over who already made up their minds about you. I told them about Ray, how he wasn't perfect, wasn't flashy, but he showed up. I told them how legacy isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when your tire's flat and your phone's dead. Who remembers how you like your coffee? Who stays even when there's nothing in it for them? Afterwards, this one girl came up, hoodie pulled low, chewing her sleeve, and said, my foster mom tells me I'm lucky she didn't give me back. Every time I eat something, I looked her dead in the eye and said, "That's not love. That's control dressed up in charity." She blinked and I could tell she wasn't used to hearing that. No one tells us that growing up, that you can say no to being treated like an obligation. That night hit different, and it made something click. I'd been so focused on building this house, defending what was mine, keeping the ghosts out, I hadn't let anything in. So I did something wild. I invited people over. Just a few. One guy from work who always asked about Duke. Beth, my lawyer, who showed up in jeans and brought a six-pack like she wasn't the scariest woman in a courtroom. A neighbor named Troy who once helped me jump my truck and refused to accept gas money. We grilled, sat around the fire pit. Someone brought peach cobbler, someone else brought a guitar. For a minute it felt like I had a real family, one that chose each other. Not because of blood, not because of guilt, just because we wanted to be there. That night as people left and the fire burned low, I sat back and realized something: I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. The trauma didn't vanish, the memories didn't evaporate, but they stopped owning me. They stopped driving every choice I made. And that's when I did the final thing. The thing that sealed the chapter shut. I wrote them letters, not out of pity, out of release. No dramatics, just the truth. To Linda and Dave, you raised me with strings attached. Every kindness came with a ledger. Every meal came with a reminder. I used to think that if I just earned enough, you'd eventually want me, that I'd become your real son. But I'm done begging. You chose Mason, over and over. And now that he's gone, you're not left with nothing. You're left with exactly what you built. I don't hate you. I don't wish you harm. But I no longer carry your story. You don't get to weigh me down anymore. To Mason, you always saw me as the competition. I was never trying to beat you. I just wanted to exist. You weaponized your charm, your fake apologies, your social media pity campaigns. But in the end, your followers can't pay your debts and your image can't fix your mess. I hope someday you find something real to hold on to. Something you don't have to filter before posting. I didn't send them. I burned them. Not in some dramatic fire ritual. Just toss them in the fire pit out back, watch the paper curl and darken, let the smoke rise and breathed it all the way in. Let it go. The next morning I woke up lighter. And then about a week later I got a package in the mail. No note, no return address. Inside a photo album. I opened it slowly. It was old, real old. Black and white photos of the ranch. Of Ray in uniform. A few with a baby me, in his lap. In front of the barn, at the feed store, at the local diner. Linda and Dave weren't in a single one. And on the last page, a note in Ray's handwriting. You were mine before they said yes. Don't ever let them rewrite that. I sat there in the kitchen album, open sun coming through the window. And for the first time in 27 years, I didn't feel like a mistake someone tolerated. I felt like someone worth keeping. I figured that was it. After the court case, the Instagram rants, the burned letters, I really thought the story had found its quiet ending. Some bruises still ached, yeah, but I was out of the war zone. The fire had burned down. All that was left were ashes and fresh ground. But see, people like Linda and Dave, they don't leave quietly. They simmer. And then they show up when they've hit rock bottom, except they don't say we're sorry. They say we're out of options. It was late October, cold enough that I had the fireplace going. Duke had just curled up beside me on the couch when someone knocked on the door. Not a text, not a call, a knock. And something in my gut twisted. I opened the door and there they were. Linda looked older, smaller somehow. Her makeup was uneven like she rushed it on in the car. Dave looked cracked, like someone had taken the sharpness out of him and left just the frame. There was no Mason, just them, and a duffel bag. I didn't say a word. Linda stepped forward. Alex, we wouldn't be here if we had any other choice. I stayed in the doorway. Dave cleared his throat. Zion Community said we could only stay there 2 more nights. After that, it's the shelter. Zion, I asked. Church housing, he muttered. I let that hang in the air. Where's Mason, I asked, knowing full well the answer. Gone, Linda whispered. Moved states, blocked us, said he needed to focus on his brand. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so damn predictable. The golden child did what golden children do when things stop being about them. He bailed, left his mess behind, burned the bridge and sprinted. And now the people who once used me as a placeholder, a background prop in his shiny story, were standing on my porch asking me to save them. They weren't crying. Not yet. They were too proud for that. but I could smell the desperation. It sat in the folds of their clothes. It dripped off them like sweat. And for a second, I wanted to say yes. Not for them. For me. To prove something. To show I was bigger, better, kinder. But then Linda opened her mouth and ruined it. We raised you. You owe us at least a place to sleep. There it was. The root of everything. You owe us. Not we're sorry, not you mattered, not even thank you for what you did. Just that same damn belief they've always carried that I was some debt they paid and now it was time to collect. So I said it. Flat, even. No. Linda blinked. What? No, I repeated. You don't get to use me as the backup plan just because Mason bailed. Dave's jaw tightened. We're your parents. You housed me. You fed me. You reminded me every single day that I wasn't your real kid. That I should be grateful for basic decency you barely delivered. Linda's voice cracked. We were trying our best. Then your best sucked, I snapped. And if this is your rock bottom, maybe that's where you need to be for once. Silence. Long, ugly, real. Then I shut the door, locked it, sat back down on the couch, and shook. Not because I was scared, but because I finally said it, out loud, with no guilt, no need to make it palatable. I told the truth, and the sky didn't fall. They sat outside for a while. I saw them from the kitchen window, just standing there in the cold like the house might change its mind if they waited long enough. It didn't. Neither did I. The next morning they were gone. No note, just 2 empty coffee cups left on the porch railing, like some passive-aggressive relic of what used to be. I didn't touch them. Let the rain wash them away. It should have ended there. But a few days later, I got a call from Aunt Denise, Linda's sister. We hadn't spoken in years. I barely remembered her except for one Thanksgiving where she gave me an extra slice of pie when no one was looking. Her voice was low, careful. Alex, I don't want to get in the middle, but I thought you should know your mom's been telling people you kicked them out, that you're living off Ray's money and ignoring your ailing parents. I let out a slow breath. Of course. Of course. They couldn't control me, so now they were rewriting the ending. I didn't scream, didn't rant, didn't post anything. I just emailed Beth and asked her to draft a public statement, simple, factual, respectful. I posted it on my personal page where mutuals could see. It's come to my attention that false claims have been made about my actions following the inheritance from Ray. The truth is, I did not kick anyone out. I offered no promises of housing. I was contacted after legal proceedings were settled and declined to reverse my position. I wish no harm to anyone, but I do not owe rescue to people who never offered refuge. Legacy is built through presence, not performance. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't juicy, but it was real. And people saw it. Denise texted 2 days later, "You didn't deserve how they treated you. I'm sorry I never spoke up. For what it's worth, I always saw how hard you tried." I cried. Not loud. Just quietly over the sink while washing dishes. Because for once, someone said what no one ever had. They saw me, not as an obligation, not as a fixer, not as a second-rate shadow, as me. It's funny, the thing that finally broke them wasn't the inheritance. It was the silence that followed. The fact that I didn't come crawling when they needed me, that I didn't even show up to prove a point. I just lived, and they couldn't handle it. 'Cause people like that, they need a villain to make themselves the victim. If you don't show up for the fight, they have to sit with the mirror. That's the worst punishment for them. Not revenge, not rage, just your absence. Loud, final, undeniable. And me, I was out in the pasture that afternoon watching Duke chase butterflies like an idiot sipping iced coffee like someone who no longer owed anybody an explanation. That was my win. No parade, no speech, just peace. And I'll take that over revenge any day. It had been almost a year since Ray passed. 10 months since the will flipped everything. 6 since Linda and Dave showed up at my door with a duffel bag and that last shred of entitlement. And now, it was just me, the land, and silence. Not the heavy, choked-up silence I grew up with, the kind that filled a room with disappointment and passive aggression. This was different. This was silence that healed. The land had come back to life under my hands. I'd learned how to patch fencing, rotate crops, use the old irrigation system. I replaced Ray's broken porch light with a solar one, turned the barn loft into a quiet little studio where I could code, think, and breathe. I even adopted a second dog, a pit mix named Cola, sweet and drooly and loyal as hell. Duke hated her at first. Now they share a bed. Funny how even the stubborn ones come around when they feel safe. Anyway, life was finally smooth, until that call. It was early, just past 7 a.m., my phone buzzed while I was loading feed sacks into the truck. Unknown number. Normally I wouldn't pick up, but I had a gut feeling. And I was right. Alex, the voice said. Quiet, raspy. It was Mason. I almost hung up on instinct, but something in his tone stopped me. He sounded off. Not fake humble or manipulative like usual. Just flat. Empty. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, he said. I stayed quiet. He went on. I'm not calling to ask for money or favors, I swear, long pause. I wanted you to hear it from me. Mom's in the hospital. She had a mild stroke. I sat down slowly on the truck bed. My hands didn't shake, my heart didn't race. I just felt this dull, heavy pressure in my chest. She's okay for now, Mason added. But it hit her hard. She keeps asking for you. I laughed once, sharp. Why she want to remind me I'm still not the real son? No, he said, voice cracking. She wants to say sorry, I think. He sounded tired. Like he hadn't slept in weeks. Like maybe life had finally taught him a lesson none of us could. I still didn't answer. She's at County General, he said. Room 314. I won't be there. I already said what I needed to say. Click. He hung up. I sat there a long time just staring out at the pasture, watching Cola dig a pointless hole, listening to the wind rattle the feed bags. And I thought, what now? Was I supposed to rush over and hold her hand? Pretend we had some deep bond that her stroke suddenly made valid? Forgiveness isn't a movie moment. It's not a hug and a piano score. It's slow, sometimes silent, sometimes never. But something in me needed to see it. Not for her, not even for closure. For proof that I could show up by choice, not guilt. So I went. Later that evening, when visiting hours were quieter and the hospital halls echoed like ghost corridors, I walked into room 314 and there she was, smaller than I remembered. Thinner, gray hair frizzy around her face, eyes half-lidded. There was no makeup, no mask, just Linda. Raw. She blinked a few times, focused, then whispered Alex. I nodded. She reached out a shaky hand. I didn't take it. She noticed. Tears welled up. You came. I did. Silence. Then she whispered, I was awful to you. I didn't respond. More silence. You didn't deserve how we treated you, she said, eyes glassy. You were a good kid. Better than Mason. You always were. We just couldn't admit it. I blinked. Once. That was it. No lump in my throat, no breakdown. Just a quiet recognition that those words finally were said out loud. She reached for me again. I'm sorry. This time I let her fingers brush mine. Not a grasp, just contact. Thank you, I said softly. Not because everything was okay now, but because I was okay. She closed her eyes, exhausted. That was all she had in her. And it was enough. I left. Never saw her again. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Denise. Linda had passed quietly in her sleep. Stroke complications. She asked if I wanted to come to the funeral. I didn't, but I sent flowers. Not for her. For me, because I needed to know I could mourn what never was and let it go. As for Dave, I don't know. Haven't heard a word. Mason sent one more message. Just 3 words. I get it. I didn't reply. Some things don't need a reply. Because here's the truth. People don't talk about. Sometimes forgiveness isn't a reunion. It's a release. Sometimes closure doesn't look like a family photo. It looks like space. Like a clean kitchen. Like 2 dogs wrestling in the backyard while the sun sets on land you bled to keep. And the final twist. I still kept the name. Ray's last name. Changed it legally after the will was settled. Not for drama, just because it felt right. So yeah, I'm Alex Carter now. Not Ramirez, not the kid who slept in the laundry room, not the placeholder, not the spare. Carter, because I earned it. Because someone gave it to me without strings. And every time I sign something with that name, I remember I wasn't born into love, but I chose it. And that's the kind of legacy they can't touch. Not with guilt, not with shame, not even with blood. I built this life from ashes. And for the first time, I'm not surviving. I'm home. Story 2. They always said I was lucky to be included. It was supposed to be a celebration for my wife's mother, Eleanor. Her 70th birthday, a classy private banquet catered, decorated, filled with friends and family. I helped organize every piece of it, booked the venue, coordinated the vendors, even paid for the damn thing. And somehow I still ended up next to the toilets. Jason, this is the family table, my sister-in-law Harper said with a thin smile. We've put you at table 12 just back there. It's cozy. Cozy was code for tucked behind the swinging kitchen doors, beside a wall sconce that buzzed like a dying bee. I stared at her, not sure if she was joking. She wasn't. Harper was one of those people who spoke like she was in a perfume commercial, sweet, polished, and fake. Everything about her was performance, from the designer dress she wore like armor to the polite cruelty of her words. I glanced at my wife Emma, seated near the head table chatting with relatives. She hadn't noticed yet. She never did when Harper pulled this kind of thing. I stepped aside, letting the waiter pass with a tray of flutes. Harper still stood there smiling like she was doing me a favor. You sure Eleanor approved this? I asked calmly. She shrugged. Oh, you know how busy she's been. She told me to handle the seating chart, and I just thought it'd be better for the flow. Right. The flow. I'd seen Harper's version of flow before. It always meant the spotlight stayed on her, and I was left standing in the shadows holding the camera. I nodded once, said nothing, then turned around and walked back to the bar. I wasn't supposed to be the kind of guy who let things slide anymore. But I'd learned if someone shows you exactly who they are, don't argue. Just make sure they learn who you are too. Mr. Kane, the waiter said gently, we're confirming a few of the add-ons your family requested. Extra Shellfish Tower specialty wines and the private cigar lounge add-on for the terrace. Shall we charge this to your card? I blinked. Sorry, what cigar lounge? Miss Harper said you'd arranged it. It's already been prepped. Of course she did. Sure, I said, slowly smiling. Charge it all. I returned to the edge of the ballroom, sipping a glass of bourbon, watching Harper work the room like she was the star of a reality show no one asked to watch. I didn't say anything to Emma. Not yet. Because what Harper didn't know was that she wasn't in charge of the event. I was. My name was on the venue, my account was tied to every vendor, and my bank had one very useful feature: real-time payment locks. I wasn't going to fight her. I was going to let her win for a moment. Let her taste it. Then pull the floor out from beneath her stilettos. Dinner began, toasts were made, and I sat quietly at table 12. I could hear muffled laughter from the main table. Emma caught my eye across the room, her expression confused, but I smiled and raised my glass. No need to start a scene, not yet. Excuse me. Harper's voice rang out over the microphone, clear and syrupy. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for coming. And of course, none of this would have been possible without my dear sister Emma, who worked so hard to make this night happen. Polite applause rippled through the room. I didn't clap. Emma looked stunned. So did Eleanor. Eleanor said, standing slowly. Sweetheart, you helped, but Jason organized and paid for this. He's the reason we're here. Harper laughed lightly into the mic. Yes, of course, Jason helped too. I mean, we all contributed, some more than others. I sipped my bourbon and waited. Right on cue, a suited man approached the stage. He whispered in Harper's ear. Her smile froze. What she said into the mic without realizing it. That can't be right. He handed her a leather folder. The sound tech didn't mute her mic. Everyone heard her next words. $24,000. The room went quiet. Harper looked up, scanning the crowd like someone drowning. I stood slowly and walked forward. Stopped just short of the steps to the stage. Oh, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You didn't know those add-ons were charged to my card. She turned red. I told them to let you order whatever you liked, I said. Didn't say I was paying. Laughter scattered around the room. A few gasps. One person coughed awkwardly. Eleanor stepped up beside me. Jason, she said gently. Is this true? Yes, I said calmly. She told me I didn't belong at the family table, that I was just here. So I decided to let her run things. The event manager appeared behind Harper. Ma'am, she said politely, will you be covering the charges today or splitting them? Harper's hand trembled on the mic. I need to make a call. The manager didn't move. I'm afraid we'll need a card now. Harper turned toward me. You're seriously not paying for this? I shrugged. You seriously didn't think I would? I didn't need revenge. What I needed was the truth to finally speak louder than her smug little voice, and in that moment, it did. Harper stumbled off the stage, muttering something about fraud and misunderstandings. Emma stood beside me, quietly linking her fingers with mine. I had no idea, she whispered. I know, I said. Eleanor smiled softly. You handled that with more grace than I would have. I smiled back. She taught me. You'd think after being exposed in front of 100 guests, Harper would disappear quietly into the night. But Harper wasn't the disappearing type. The next morning I woke up to 14 missed calls, 6 voice messages and 1 group text titled Family Clarity Time. The messages read like a PR crisis response team had coached her. Hi everyone, last night was clearly a misunderstanding. Jason, I'm sure you didn't mean for things to go that way. Let's remember who we are, family. Let's not let one little miscommunication define us. A miscommunication. You publicly humiliate your brother-in-law, steal control of the event he paid for, rack up a luxury-level tab under his name, and try to pretend it was a communication hiccup. I didn't respond. Neither did anyone else. Emma was still asleep, curled under the covers beside me. I laid there for a while, watching the soft morning light spill across her face. She stirred slightly. Please tell me Harper was just a nightmare. I kissed her forehead. Nope, she's real. But it looks like her little kingdom's collapsing. Emma sighed. She's already texting. Group message, full damage control mode. Figures. We didn't talk about it more. We didn't need to. We'd spent years watching Harper bulldoze her way through every family gathering, every group decision, every moment that wasn't about her. Only now the lights had been turned on and suddenly everyone could see the cracks. But Harper still thought this was her story. At noon, the fallout went public. Someone had posted a video of the banquet disaster to TikTok. Not just a blurry clip, either full HD perfect sound, captioned and already trending. When the family's golden girl tries to hijack your event and gets handed the bill, by 2 p.m. it had 1.3 million views. People stitched it, reacted to it, memed it. Some quotes. This is why I don't go to family events unless I'm legally required. Jason's petty level 10/10ths, executed with dignity and style. Sis forgot that controlling the narrative only works when you're not on camera. Harper must have seen it because by the evening, she was doing her second favorite thing, lying professionally. She called Eleanor. I was on the couch with Emma when Eleanor called us afterward. She said it was all a setup, Eleanor said tiredly. That you baited her into adding the charges just to humiliate her. Emma laughed through her nose. Did she also say he photoshopped the bill and hacked the microphone system? Eleanor chuckled, but it was hollow. She's spinning. It's all she knows how to do. There was a pause on the line. She's never been challenged before, Eleanor continued. Not really. She's used to taking what she wants and calling it confidence. But that wasn't confidence last night. That was entitlement. And it finally got caught. I heard the sadness under her words. Not regret, grief. Eleanor had spent a lifetime believing she could soften Harper into a better version of herself. Now she sounded like someone who had just realized her daughter wasn't going to change. The next few days were quiet on the surface. Underneath, the storm kept brewing. The TikTok clip had made it to Instagram, Reels, Twitter, and even a local news site that ran a viral moment of the week section. Harper's name wasn't mentioned, but her face was unmistakable. Someone from her office must have seen it. That Friday, she was called into a meeting with HR. Emma's phone buzzed while we were at brunch. It was a message from David Harper's ex-husband. She got suspended. Pending review. Apparently someone submitted an anonymous ethics complaint too. Emma blinked at the screen. She always told people David was the one who couldn't let go, she muttered. I sipped my coffee. Turns out he just waited patiently for the truth to surface. That night, Harper tried calling again. Then she showed up. Not at our place, at Eleanor's. Emma and I were already there, helping Eleanor take down the decorations she'd wanted to keep from the banquet. The doorbell rang and there she was. Same fake smile, less sparkle in her eyes. Hi, Mom, she said sweetly. Can we talk? Eleanor didn't even hesitate. If you're here to pretend nothing happened, turn around. Harper's smile cracked. I'm not pretending, I just think we should talk like adults. You mean like adults who rack up thousands in food and booze and expect others to cover it, or the kind who sabotage people's dignity for sport? Harper's jaw tightened. You always exaggerate. No, I said from behind Eleanor. You always minimize. She turned toward me, face going cold. You must feel really proud of yourself, she snapped. Finally got your little moment. No, I replied. I just finally stopped giving you mine. Harper tried again with Emma later. Texted her privately. I'm sorry you feel like I hurt your husband. Maybe we both made mistakes. At the end of the day, we're sisters. Doesn't that mean something? Emma didn't respond right away. Then as we lay in bed that night, she rolled over and handed me her phone. Should I answer her? I looked at the screen, then at my wife. Do you want to? She shook her head. I want to be done. Then be done, I said gently. She deleted the thread. 3 days later, Harper made one last play. A long email to Eleanor CCing the entire family. It was a masterclass in spin. She admitted nothing, apologized vaguely, framed herself as misunderstood, claimed she had been under intense emotional stress and that Jason's cold response had blindsided her. It ended with, "I hope this family finds its way back to love." Eleanor replied with 3 lines. "Love without respect is just control with lipstick. You taught us that. We're moving on." Harper didn't write again. A week passed, then 2. No Harper, no emails, no last-minute apologies masked as holiday cheer. It was as if she'd vanished from the family group chat and nobody mourned her absence. Eleanor started sleeping better. Emma's migraine stopped. Even David Harper's ex sent Emma a message. "I never believed I'd see the day. I owe you 2 drinks, or a statue." I won't lie. There was a strange peace in the silence, not the kind that feels like an empty room, but the kind that finally lets you hear your own thoughts without the hum of constant manipulation. But silence, as I was learning, doesn't mean stillness, because the fallout always finds you, and Harper's was just getting started. It began with a headline: "Corporate consultant faces suspension after viral family dinner incident." Harper's face wasn't in it, but the screenshots were. The TikTok had spread beyond entertainment feeds. Now it was on career blogs, LinkedIn, and even a subreddit titled "Karma is Served Cold." People recognized her. Her clients did. So did her boss. Emma got the update first. It was a text from one of her cousins. "Harper's on probation. Company is evaluating public image alignment." I showed Eleanor the message. She didn't react at first. Then she said, "She always told me she was irreplaceable. I guess the internet disagreed." Meanwhile, things in our lives started shifting for the better. Emma and I were no longer just the quiet couple in the corner at family events. We were getting invites to dinners, calls just to check in, and actual questions like, "How did you stay so calm while Harper unraveled? Was this planned? What did you say to the waiter? Because that man had the timing of a magician." It was weird. Not the attention, just the way truth changes people's perception. We hadn't done anything new. We'd simply refused to tolerate the old. And for some reason that looked like heroism. I just called it clarity. Then came the apology. Kind of. It arrived by mail, an actual card. Harper's handwriting, dramatic and slanted, stretched across thick linen paper. "Jason, I've had time to reflect. I never meant to humiliate you. I only wanted to make sure everything looked perfect for Mom. I know I went too far, and for that I'm sorry. Maybe one day we can talk like siblings again." There was no return address. No mention of the bill. No mention of the police. No mention of calling me a servant while sipping my bourbon. Emma read it first. "She still doesn't get it," she said quietly. I nodded. "She thinks this was about seating charts." Eleanor didn't get a card. Neither did David. But someone else reached out unexpectedly. Aunt Luann, Harper's godmother. The one who'd always sided with her no matter how outrageous she got. She called Eleanor one morning and said I watched the video, twice, and I think I've been wrong about her. That alone was shocking, but what followed was even better. I always thought Harper was misunderstood. Turns out we just let her be mean because it was easier than confronting her, and I think that hurt all of us. Eleanor cried after that call. Not sobbing, just the quiet, exhausted kind of cry that says finally. Someone else sees it too. By spring, Harper was unemployed. She didn't lose her job because of the TikTok directly, at least that's what she told people. She said the company was going in a different direction. Said she was ready for a change. Said she was taking time to reconnect with herself. But the truth found its way to us through Emma's cousin. Harper had been offered a reduced role, less money, no team, less spotlight. She refused. Said she wasn't made for mediocrity. So she quit. And then went silent again. One night in May, Eleanor came to dinner at our place. She brought wine and old photo albums. We talked about everything but Harper. Until we did. She called me Eleanor. Said, pouring herself a second glass. "When? Last week?" Emma leaned in. And she asked if I'd forgotten what family means. I set down my fork. Eleanor took a slow sip. I told her family doesn't mean tolerance without boundaries. It means showing up honestly and taking responsibility when you don't. And Emma asked. She hung up. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Eleanor looked at me and said, "You changed this family, Jason. You might not realize it yet, but you did." And maybe she was right. Because that summer, something happened that would have been unthinkable the year before. Emma and I were asked to host the family reunion. Not Harper, not Luann, not anyone with an image to maintain. Us. We almost said no out of instinct, out of old memories. But then Emma said, "Why not? Maybe it's time to show everyone what family looks like when no one's walking on eggshells." And so we did. We hosted, we cooked, we laughed, we let kids splash in the pool. We didn't whisper about drama or hold back out of fear someone might be offended. It was just easy. No throne, no queen, just people, together. And for once, that was enough. The reunion was everything I didn't know I needed. Emma and I kept it simple. Good food, open space, no stage, no seating charts. People showed up early and stayed late. Kids ran wild, dogs barked at butterflies, and uncles argued over grill techniques like it was a competitive sport. No one mentioned Harper. It was like the family's collective memory decided we're not carrying that weight anymore. But weight doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. Sometimes it shows up on your doorstep. 3 weeks after the reunion, it did. It was a Sunday morning. I was stacking firewood behind the garage when Emma poked her head out the back door. "Jason," she said quietly, "you're going to want to come to the front porch." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "What is it?" She hesitated. "It's her." I didn't need clarification. I just nodded. Harper stood on our porch wearing dark sunglasses and a stiff expression that didn't match the oversized cardigan she'd swaddled herself in like armor. She didn't knock, didn't smile, didn't even say hello when I opened the screen door. Instead, she exhaled and said, "I want to talk." I folded my arms. She shifted. "About fixing this." We sat in the kitchen. Emma stood by the counter, arms crossed. Harper didn't ask for coffee. She didn't compliment the house. Her mask had slipped. It wasn't bitterness anymore. It was fear. "I've had a rough year." She started removing her sunglasses. Her eyes were hollow, the way someone looks when life finally calls in the debt for years of avoiding themselves. "I lost the job. Can't find a new one. David filed to lower alimony. And now Mom won't even take my calls." I said nothing. Emma said less. Harper drummed her fingers against the table. "Look, I know I was hard on you. I know I made mistakes, but this exile thing you're all doing, it's too much." Emma scoffed. "You didn't just make mistakes. You made an identity out of making people feel small." Harper flinched. "So what, you just cut me out forever?" I looked at her carefully. "Harper, you came into our lives like a thunderstorm and expected us to be grateful for the lightning. You played queen for years, and now that no one's bowing anymore, you call it exile." Her voice cracked. "I'm still family." I nodded slowly. "You are, and that's the hardest part." She came back once more just before Christmas. She brought a small box of cookies she claimed she baked. Emma checked the packaging store-bought. She asked to come inside. We said no. She asked if she could come to Eleanor's Christmas Eve dinner. We told her it wasn't our decision anymore. "Then who decides?" she asked, almost shouting. I smiled gently. "The people at the table." She left without saying goodbye. That year, Eleanor hosted the smallest Christmas dinner we'd ever had and the best. She only invited people who made her feel seen. Emma and I sat beside her. David came with his new girlfriend who brought wine and a quiet confidence Harper would have hated. Luann brought her famous pecan pie and apologized again for years of blind loyalty to someone who never earned it. There was no drama, no hierarchy, no forced speeches. Just a long table, warm food, and laughter that sounded like healing. At one point, Eleanor raised her glass and said, "To the people who stayed, and to the ones who finally saw the light." We toasted. No one asked who she meant. In February, a letter arrived. A real one this time. Not typed, not formal. It was in Harper's handwriting. Small, slanted, uncertain. Asterisk. "Jason and Emma, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect an invitation. But I wanted to say thank you. Not for how you handled me, but for how you didn't. You didn't scream at me. You didn't humiliate me. You just stepped back and let me see who I really was. And I hated you for it. But now, I think I needed it. I don't know who I am without the role I played in this family, but I'm trying to find out. Maybe one day we'll talk. Until then, thank you." Harper asterisk. Emma read it first, then passed it to me. We didn't discuss it much. We didn't need to. Some things aren't about reconciliation. They're about recognition. And that was enough. A year later, I ran into her at a bookstore. She was browsing a section on mindfulness. Alone, no makeup, no show. She saw me, I nodded, she nodded back. And that was it. No speech, no blame. Just two people who once stood on opposite ends of a table and now knew better. I don't know if Harper changed. Not completely. But I know we did. We stopped bending, stopped apologizing for asking to be respected, stopped pretending that family meant unconditional acceptance without accountability. The table we sit at now, we built it ourselves. And we only add seats for people who know how to share them. Final reflection. I posted this story online, not expecting much. Just wanted to share the moment I stopped being the silent seat filler and started being the one who picked the guest list. Thousands of comments later, here's what I know. You're not cruel for demanding respect. You're not selfish for saying no more. You're not a bad person for walking away from people who refuse to change. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop participating in your own mistreatment. That's not revenge, that's freedom. Thanks for reading. And if you've ever been stuck at a metaphorical table by the bathrooms, just know your own table is waiting. You just have to build it. Story 3. When my phone rang that Sunday morning, I almost didn't answer. I was elbows deep in a sink full of dishes halfway through my only day off. But when I saw the caller ID Mom, I sighed, wiped my hands on a towel and picked up. Hi, Mom. Oh, good you're home. She chirped like this wasn't going to be one of those calls. Can you come over? It's about something important. I already knew what this was about. Because anytime the word important came up, it usually meant your sister messed something up again. And I was right. By the time I got there, my sister Ava was already at the kitchen table, grinning like she had just won the lottery. My parents sat across from her beaming. It felt like a setup, because it was. Darren Mom began. Ava's finally taking initiative. I raised an eyebrow. Really that a first? Ava stuck out her tongue. Cute. Dad cleared his throat. Your sister's starting her own catering business. She's got a great plan, but she needs a car to transport supplies and equipment. And she just needs a co-signer. There it was, the favor. No, I said, barely blinking. Ava blinked back like she couldn't believe I didn't even consider it. Darren Mom scolded, You didn't even hear the details. I don't need to, I said calmly. I know how this goes. Come on, man, Ava said, leaning forward. I've got half the down payment. I just need a boost. This is different. That's what you said about cosmetology school, and the cupcake truck, and the Etsy crystal store. That was years ago, she snapped. 2 years, I corrected. And I still remember covering your overdraft fees when you ghosted the bank. Dad cut in. She's grown a lot since then, and besides, it's just a car loan. You have good credit, stable job. This won't even touch you. I looked at them, then at the contract Ava had already printed. They didn't want my advice. They wanted my signature. Ava softened her voice. Please dare, just this once. I stared at the pen she slid across the table. I knew better, but I signed anyway. The first 3 months were surprisingly normal. Ava texted every few days with updates about catering gigs, late nights, prepping menus, or satisfied clients. She even sent photos of cupcakes and tiny canapes artfully arranged like Pinterest fever dreams. I started to think I had been wrong. Then without warning, the updates stopped. A week passed. Then 2. Then I got the first call from the loan company. Hi, Mr. Mason, we just wanted to confirm, has your address changed? We mailed a late payment notice but haven't heard back. My stomach dropped. I hung up and opened Ava's Instagram. Her most recent post was a boomerang of her holding a wine glass on a rooftop bar captioned, Work hard, rest harder. I wasn't blessed, I was livid. When she finally picked up my call, it was with a yawn. Oh my God, Darren, can we not? I kept my voice steady. Where's the car payment? I'll handle it. When? Soon. Chill. No, give me a date, Ava, because they're calling me. She scoffed. You're acting like I crashed it into a building. It's 1 late payment. 2, I corrected. And if there's a 3rd, it hits my credit, my name. She went quiet for a second. Then, well, maybe you should have said no. I almost laughed. You're unbelievable. She hung up. The 3rd missed payment came the next week. The loan company started sending threatening emails. I called my mom. Her voice was strained. Ava said she was handling it. She's not. She's at brunch. Maybe she needs some space, Darren. She's been under so much pressure. I lost it. You keep saying that, but when exactly is she going to take responsibility? She just needs help. No, she needs consequences. Silence. Then she whispered, so what are you going to do? I looked out my apartment window down at the quiet street. Fix it, myself. That Friday, I drove to Ava's building. I waited. I knew her schedule. She was never home after 7 p.m. on weekends. Partying, always. And sure enough, around 7:10, she strutted out of her apartment in heels and a dress more expensive than her last 3 payments combined. I watched her drive away. 10 minutes later, a tow truck pulled up. I'd called in a favor from a friend. As her co-signer, I had every legal right to reclaim the car. The driver, Kevin, gave me a low whistle. "You sure about this?" I nodded. "Take it." 5 minutes later, the car was hooked up and gone. I left the keys and a note with the leasing office. If Ava wants her car back, she can start by calling the bank, not me. When she called me at 2 a.m., I didn't answer. When she texted "you're dead" to me, I put my phone on silent. When my mom called the next morning, I let it go to voicemail. I sat on my couch, coffee in hand, and watched the sunrise. For the first time in months, I felt free. By Monday morning, the silence had shattered. I had 11 missed calls before noon. 5 from Ava, 3 from Mom, 1 from Dad, and 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. The last voicemail Ava left was mostly sobbing. Something about betrayal, and "how could you do this to me?" The usual soundtrack of a crisis she created herself. I listened to maybe 10 seconds of it before deleting the rest. I wasn't being cruel. I was finally choosing peace. And peace, it turned out, doesn't last long in my family. That evening, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing stiffly in her cardigan and clutching her purse like it might fly away. "Mom?" She didn't smile. "We need to talk." I figured, I said, stepping aside. She walked in like a woman heading to court, taking a seat without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door and stayed standing. "I just came from Ava's," she began. "She's devastated. She's reckless," I corrected. "She's your sister." "And I'm your son," I shot back. Yet somehow I'm the villain for protecting my credit score. Mom shook her head, exasperated. "This isn't about money, Darren. It's about how you made her feel." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're serious. You embarrassed her." "She embarrassed herself," I said flatly. "I warned her. I begged her. And she posted beach selfies while the bank chased me." Mom's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she wanted to argue, but didn't know how. "You think I'm cruel?" I continued. "Then explain why it's always my responsibility to fix Ava's messes." "Because you can," she said quietly. And there it was. The truth. The entitlement. The assumption that because I was stable, I was obligated. You realize how messed up that is, right? "She's struggling, Darren. She's always struggling. Maybe if you'd just let her stay with you." "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not." Her eyes widened. "What do you expect her to do? She's lost her job, her car. Consequences, Mom. They're called consequences." She stood up, her voice rising. "She's family. And so am I." That stopped her. The room went silent. "I'm not her ATM. I'm not her emotional support donkey. I'm done." Mom stared at me like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. Maybe she didn't, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't apologizing for protecting myself. By the end of the week, the full family backlash was in motion. Dad called me that Friday. "This was over the line," he said without greeting. "You need to fix it." "No, I don't. She's your sister." "You said that already." "She's crashing at our house. She can stay there forever," I said. "She won't," he growled. "You know that. She's your problem." "Not anymore." He was quiet for a beat. Then, colder than I'd ever heard him. "If you walk away from her, don't expect us to come running when you need help." That made me laugh. "Thanks, Dad. That's the most honest thing you've ever said." I hung up before he could respond. The next 2 weeks were the calmest I'd had in years. No panicked texts about late payments, no fake emergencies, no guilt-ridden voicemails. Just silence. At work I was sharper, clearer. My manager even complimented my focus. At home I started cooking again, sleeping better, existing without the constant dread of being someone else's safety net. But of course Ava couldn't let me live in peace. Because some people only realize what they had once it's been towed away. It was a Saturday morning when she showed up. No warning, no knock, just Ava standing outside my apartment like the ghost of every financial disaster I'd tried to bury. She looked rough, smeared makeup, a hoodie she probably borrowed from someone else's, hair pulled into a limp bun. I opened the door but didn't move. "Wow," she said, "not even going to invite me in." "No." She sighed. "Look, I just want to talk. You had 3 months to talk. You chose rooftop parties and bottomless mimosas. Don't do this." "You did this," I said, voice flat. She folded her arms. "I'm in a tough spot." "I know." She glanced at the hallway behind me. "Mom and Dad kicked me out." I didn't say anything. "They said I need to start a living in the real world." Can you believe that? I could actually. And now you won't even help me. I leaned against the doorframe. "Why should I?" She blinked, stunned. "Because I'm your sister." "And I was your brother," I said. "When you needed a co-signer, when you needed money." When you wanted to skip the consequences. Her eyes were glassy now, angry and sad and embarrassed all at once. I made a mistake, okay? No, you made choices over and over, and I'm done being your cushion. So what? She asked bitterly. You just throw me away. No, I said softly. I'm finally putting me first. She sniffled. I'm really out of options. I nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to find new ones. She didn't say anything after that. She just turned around and walked away. And for the first time in our lives, I let her go. That night, I sat on my balcony with a beer in hand and a blanket draped over my shoulders. I watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. The silence was peaceful, not the kind that follows a fight, but the kind that says you did the right thing. My phone stayed quiet. No guilt, no panic. Just freedom. 2 months passed. Not a word from Ava, not a whisper from my parents. It was like I'd fallen off the family tree and no one missed the branch. At first, the silence felt sharp, like rejection. But over time, it became something else. Peace. I was waking up on weekends without checking my bank account in a panic. I had stopped waiting for the next emergency, the next favor, the next guilt trip disguised as a phone call. I was living my own life for the first time in years. And it felt clean. Like finally stepping out of a room full of smoke and taking a deep breath of real air. Then came the knock. Not a frantic one, just 3 short taps. I almost didn't answer. But something told me I had to. When I opened the door, I didn't recognize her right away. She was thinner, pale, dressed in a wrinkled hoodie and jeans that didn't fit quite right. Ava. Hey, she said softly. I stared at her. You look homeless, she offered with a wry smile. Yeah, that's because I am. I crossed my arms, unsure of where this was going. She leaned on the door frame like she couldn't quite hold herself up. Can I sit down? I hesitated, then nodded once. She followed me inside and sank into the couch like it had been calling her name for weeks. I didn't say anything. I let the silence do the work. She looked around the apartment. Neat, warm, stable. I get it now, she said finally. Get what? What it costs to be irresponsible. I didn't react, just waited. She fidgeted with the sleeve of her hoodie. I've been staying at a friend's place. Couch surfing, working 2 jobs diner during the day bar at night. That's good, I said. I'm tired, Darren. I nodded. I bet. I didn't come to ask for anything, she added quickly. I wanted you to know I'm trying. For real this time. That caught my attention. Because for once her voice didn't sound rehearsed. She wasn't selling me a pitch. She wasn't sweet-talking her way out of consequences. She sounded like someone who had finally felt the burn of rock bottom. I leaned forward. What changed? Ava shrugged. Honestly, when you stopped cleaning up my messes, I had no choice but to face them. For the first time in my life. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to make this easy. She needed to keep speaking, to say it all. And she did. I used to think you were the lucky one, she said quietly, because you had money, a good job, a routine. I thought you had it easy. I huffed a humorless laugh. I never had it easy. I had to choose responsibility every single day. And while I was doing that, you were buying overpriced shoes with overdraft fees. Ava flinched, but she didn't argue. That's the difference, I added. You mistook freedom for carelessness. Her eyes shimmered. Not with anger this time, but something else. Shame. I deserve that, she said. You deserve the truth, I corrected. I don't hate you, Ava, but I can't carry you anymore. She nodded slowly. I know. 2 weeks later, she called again. Not to ask for help. Not to beg. She was working a 3rd job, she said. Doing some delivery shifts in the evenings. Figured it was time I started paying back the world. She said, almost laughing. I didn't say much, just listened. That was new for her too, being okay with silence. Around that same time, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to it hours later after dinner, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine. Hi, honey. Her voice was soft. I wanted to say, maybe you were right, about Ava, about everything. I almost dropped the phone. She continued. It's just hard. Watching your daughter struggle. Watching your son stop answering your calls. I didn't want to believe I failed either of you. She paused. Her voice wobbled. But I think the truth is, we didn't protect you enough from her mess, and we didn't expect you to break. I stared at the phone stunned. And Darren, I hope it's not too late to fix things. For all of us. Click. No demands, no manipulation. Just an olive branch. It took me 2 days to call her back. She picked up on the first ring. Hey, Mom. Oh, thank God, she whispered. I wasn't sure you'd call. I wasn't sure either. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then she said, "I miss you." And for the first time in years, I let myself say it back. "I miss you too." Later that week, Ava texted me a photo of her first full paycheck. It wasn't much, but it was hers. "I'm not where I want to be," she wrote, "but I'm finally on the way there." I stared at the message for a while before replying. "Proud of you, keep going." She didn't respond with emojis or fake positivity. Just 2 words, "Thanks, Darren." And this time I knew she meant it. I still didn't offer her money. I didn't offer her a couch to sleep on, but I offered something new, a line of respect she could choose to earn back. And she was finally choosing it, one small step at a time, 6 months. That's how long it had been since the repo, the screaming, the late-night calls. Half a year since I stopped being the family ATM and started living like my life belonged to me. And somehow in that stretch of silence, everything changed. But not in the ways I expected. I hadn't forgiven Ava, not entirely, but I had started to understand her. She'd grown up being told the world would adjust to her needs, that someone would catch her before she hit the ground. Turns out, the moment no one did, she figured out how to land on her own. It was a Thursday afternoon when she called. "Hey," her voice was lighter, stronger. "Hey," I replied, cautious but not cold. "So, I did something." I raised an eyebrow even though she couldn't see it. "Is this a yay kind of something or a brace yourself kind of something?" She laughed, real genuine. "It's a you'll want to sit down for this kind of something." "I'm listening." "I paid off the remainder of the loan." I blinked. "Wait, the car loan? The one I—" "Yes, I paid the bank directly. Got the balance cleared? You're off the hook officially." I sat down slowly. "Ava, that was—" I know she cut in, her voice tight with pride. "It's not everything, but I wanted you to know I meant what I said. I'm trying to clean up after myself now." There was a long silence on the line. Then I said the one thing I hadn't said in a long time. "I'm proud of you." She choked out a breath like she hadn't expected to hear it. "Thanks." And I meant it. Mom called later that night. I heard about the loan. "You spying on us now?" I joked. She laughed. "You know me, I'm still Mom." We chatted for a while, normal stuff, groceries, a show she was watching. She mentioned Dad was mellowing out a bit, even apologized for pushing so hard about Ava all those months ago. I was scared, she admitted quietly. I thought if we didn't protect her, she'd crumble. "But you protected her from consequences," I said gently. "That's not the same thing." "I see that now," she whispered, "and I'm sorry." For the first time, her apology didn't sound like an excuse. It sounded like a woman who had finally faced her own reflection and accepted the cracks. That weekend, Ava invited me to lunch. Just us. Neutral ground. A little cafe with mismatched chairs and indie music humming low through old speakers. She had cut her hair, wore no makeup, just jeans and a tee with calloused hands that looked like they'd seen real work. "You look different," I said. "I feel different." She smiled. "Still screwed up, just less dangerously." We laughed. She pushed a napkin across the table. "Look." I opened it, confused. Inside was a receipt. A deposit. "Security for a small apartment," she explained. "My own. First one in years I'm not couch surfing into. No roommates. Just me." I nodded slowly. "Good for you." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever think we'll be close again?" It wasn't a trap. It wasn't guilt. Just a question. I took a sip of coffee and gave her the only honest answer I had. "I think we're both learning how to be real people. That's a start." She smiled. "I'll take that." Weeks passed. Then out of nowhere I got a call from Dad. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. "Hey," I said, guarded. "Hey, son." That word hadn't landed right in months. But something about the way he said it this time, quiet, steady, made it feel genuine. I wanted to say, "You were right." I sat up straighter. "About Ava. About how we handled it. About how we leaned on you too much." "That's new," I muttered. He chuckled. "Yeah, took me a while. Pride's a hell of a thing." "It is." He paused. "I know I wasn't fair to you. Expected too much. Ignored what you were giving. I didn't say anything." He filled the space. "I see it now. And I'm sorry." There it was. Simple, clean, late, but real. "Thanks, Dad," I said quietly. "I hope maybe you'll come by for dinner sometime. No pressure." I nodded. I might. And I meant it. The next family gathering was different. No spotlights, no whispered arguments behind kitchen doors, no awkward silences. Just people trying. Ava showed up on time, brought dessert she made herself, and helped clean up without being asked. Mom didn't ask about money once. Dad actually hugged me twice. It wasn't perfect. We didn't magically become the Brady Bunch overnight, but it was progress, a real one. Later that night as I drove home, I thought about everything that had happened. The lies, the manipulation, the guilt, and how easily I could have kept living in it forever. But walking away hadn't destroyed my family. It had forced them to grow. It had forced me to grow. That's the thing no one tells you about setting boundaries. At first it feels like betrayal, but really it's a kind of love. The hard kind. The kind that says, I believe you can do better, but I won't let you hurt me while you figure it out. And when it works, it heals more than just the cracks. It builds something stronger. This wasn't the story I thought I'd tell, but maybe it was the one I needed.